Hey there, we are going live. I'm going to get hydrated here before we before we get going. Andy Pepper joining you live from the digital studios. I think I mentioned last week the digital studio, not new, but kind of new to me. The weather guys have been using it regularly, doing a lot of great updates, but they're hoping that the reporters and anchors will start using it more regularly. So I'm going to do it on Wednesdays when I have day shifts. Depending on my story shoots or what's going on. Could be in the morning, could be in the early afternoon, or like tonight, closer to 4 o'clock or 4:30 or whatever time it may be. But we're going to chat about whatever the hot or pressing topics is. Right now, obviously, we're a couple weeks away from the Super Bowl. So still talking Lions and Lions off season. I think last week, Aaron Glenn had not been hired. Ben Johnson had been hired, but not announced by the Bears. Johnson saying in his press conference that he basically, that was the job he wanted, that he loved Chicago, that the last, I don't know how many summers, 7, 8 summers, he'd been taking his family to Chicago to take in a series at Wrigley. The family really loved it. Obviously, he's got a franchise quarterback to work with in Caleb Williams. That's pretty much what makes all jobs desirable. That's why, for instance, the Saints still don't have a head coach besides their terrible salary cap situation and their aging roster. And the Las Vegas Raiders were one of the last to get a head coach. If you got a good quarterback, like the Pats job was desirable. You got Drake May. It looks like he's going to be the guy for the next 10 years. So you want to have a quarterback, or you want to be in a position with your draft pick to get a promising young quarterback. So getting sidetracked. At any rate, Ben Johnson got a chance to turn around, I think, a Bears franchise, a Bears team that was much better than that. 5-12 record. I think they 7 losses by 7 points or less. Obviously, they almost beat Detroit at Ford Field earlier in the season. They mismanaged the clock at the end, and that was the final nail in the coffin of Matt Eberflus. But there's obviously some very nice offensive talent there. I think the only problem for Ben Johnson is the NFC North is just ridiculous. It's a landmine with the Lions, the 14-3 Vikings, and the Packers. I don't know what they ended up with, 12 wins, 13 wins. So it's a minefield. So I still think the future looks bright for him there. We'll talk about his replacement in a moment. Aaron Glenn then announced a day or so later after I spoke to you last Wednesday, as the New York Jets head coach. Glenn was a first-round draft pick of the team back in 1994. He said it's a job he wanted as well. He spent 8 years there. That's a pretty desirable situation. I just spent the time talking about the quarterback situation, and we don't know what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers. I think he'll be back as long as he wants to keep playing, because the Jets, I think it would cost them some $40+ million against the cap. So it would pretty much destroy them. So they're going to probably have to hope that Aaron Rodgers has one more good season in him while they ponder how to address the quarterback situation for the future. But they have some wonderful pieces on defense. That's a very good defense that kind of fell apart after head coach Robert Saleh, who was a former DC with the 49ers, who ironically he's now back with after he left. They got a really good young running back in Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson. I don't know what they're going to do with Devontae Adams. He's older, owed a lot of money as well. But they have pieces there, even though they don't have the quarterback of the future. So he had a great quote, though. It wasn't as good as the Dan Campbell get knocked down by your kneecaps on the way back up quote, because frankly, what could possibly ever be better than that quote? But he did say, quote, "We're the frickin' New York Jets, and we're built for this ship." Except he didn't say ship. He said the naughty word. But I thought it was a great bite. And, yeah, I think that's a great fit for him. And got a lot to work with. So good with Aaron Glenn. All right, so as for who replaced Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, Dan Campbell wasting little time as expected, promoting Kelvin Shepard, linebackers coach the last few seasons. I think he was defensive line coach in 21 and then linebackers the last few years. I remember reading something about Campbell during the, I think it was a 22 season, before they turned things around and they were 2-5, 2-6. He asked Shepard to address the team, and apparently it was amazing. And it's one of those things where you just gain the respect of everyone in the organization. I think even Ben Johnson talked about how he addressed the team and how he carried himself. And it was a guy who's eventually probably going to be a head coach. And he's very highly regarded within the building, is my understanding. High football IQ guy. Campbell was the Dolphins tight ends coach. Remember, he briefly was the interim head coach when Shepard was still playing. And he said that Campbell brought him into his office to acknowledge his leadership and tell him he'd be a coach someday. Well, Dan Campbell made sure he'd be a coach someday, bringing him to Detroit. And again, defensive ends coach, linebackers coach, and now defensive coordinator. So we're going to hope for the best, obviously, with that hire. The news of the new offensive coordinator breaking in the last couple of days. It's going to be John Morton, the now former Denver Broncos passing game coordinator last 2 seasons under Sean Payton. Also, a former WMU Bronco. He's a Michigan native, by the way, Rochester Hills. Played 2 seasons as a wide receiver at Western, I believe 91 and 92 senior season. Caught 39 balls for nearly 700 yards, 5 touchdowns. Was undrafted, did play professionally for 4 years, bounced around 3 or 4 different NFL practice squads. I don't believe he got into a game or promoted to the active roster, but did play as well in the CFL and the World Football League. Remember that before calling it quits, I think 4 years into his career, and began his coaching, climbing the coaching carousel, or getting on the coaching carousel in 1997. He's worked under some real good head coaches. Hey, Bernice, good evening to you as well. Thanks for joining us. Let me know if you got a specific question. But Morton's worked under John Gruden, Sean Payton, Pete Carroll, and some guy named Jim Harbaugh back with the 49ers, just to name a few. He was the Jets offensive coordinator in 2017 when they had Josh McCown as quarterback. Didn't have a lot of pieces to work with, frankly. Was fired after that year. He was the offensive coordinator for a couple of years at USC, 2009 and 2010. Campbell brought him to the Lions as a senior offensive analyst in 2022. And I remember reading this quote at the, I think it was the 23 NFL Combine, when he was asked about Morton, and he had some high praise for how much he did behind the scenes in conjunction with Ben Johnson to help that offense. And he thought it was a real loss that Morton had left. But, he got a promotion and he went to Denver. Bo Nix had an outstanding rookie season last year, and I'm sure Morton had a hand in. 29 touchdowns, nearly 3,800 passing yards. So, look, on paper, 2 real good hires there for Dan Campbell as they turn the page. The stability with the head coach and the 2 coordinators the last few years has been wonderful, and one of the big reasons for the Lions' success. So it is certainly an area of concern, but we're going to hope Dan Campbell and Dan we trust brought in the right guys to keep this train on the tracks. Hey, we got some more comments here. Kathy, hello. Thanks for doing this. I'm happy to do this. Talk sports. Sit in front of the camera and talk sports. That's like stealing. Happy to do it. Hi, Peggy. Peyton Manning be an assistant coach. Yeah, he's got the mind for it. He loves the X's and O's of the game, loves to talk about it. It's just a matter if he ever decides he wants to. If he wants to be a coach, he'd probably get hired as a head coach, kind of like Jeff Saturday did with no experience a couple years ago with the Colts, or maybe a GM. I don't know what's in his future as far as that. But if he wants that, that's going to happen. Someone's going to bend over backwards to hire Peyton Manning. So I'll keep checking the comments. Good evening to all of you. So, Lions offseason, took care of the coordinators. What about the team? What about the players? What about the salary cap situation? And I'm typically disjointed. I like to write notes and get topics I want to talk about and things all over. And I should probably figure out how to do this in a more cohesive manner. But just like high school and college, I'm winging it. Okay. So the Lions, I talked a little bit about this last week. They're 8th in available cap space, which sounds great. It is. They have $58 million this for the 2025 season in cap room. Again, that's 8th best in the entire NFL. But in 2026, they're projected to be in the bottom 5 in cap space. Because remember, they handed out all all those deals and extensions, extending Penei Sewell, extending Amon Ra. I know I'm missing another big one. Who else did they extend? Of course, I'm drawing a blank. But, look, they're very young and very good. When you're very young and very good, you got to pay these guys. Eventually, the bill comes through. So they're kicking that money a little bit down the road. In a few years, that's going to be a problem. But right now, $58 million in cap room, but 2026 projected in the bottom five. So that means you can't spend a ton of money to bring in marquee free agents. You got to be wise. They have 31 pending free agents. Couple of key starters in that list. Cornerback Carlton Davis III. I'm sure they'd like to have him back. They decided they want to address that position in the draft or bring him back. Does he want to come back? Who's going to pony up the money for him? Kevin Zeitler is going to be 35, did a real good job at right guard. Offensive line, very important to the Lions, who they are, their identity. They like to run the football. They love the Sonic and Knuckles backfield. They want to dominate you physically. They're all about grit. So they'll have to make a decision with Kevin Zeitler, among others. But they also, apologies. Hey, Barry. Glad to share this information with you, Bernice. They also, back to the salary cap, they also can offer extensions to Aiden Hutchinson, to Jamison Williams, to All-Pro safety Kirby Joseph. So, again, very young, very good. You got to pay these players. And eventually there's going to be some major decisions, some tough decisions to be made about which talented young players you're going to let go. For instance, they got two outstanding safeties, a Pro Bowler, who's the Alabama young man who's again, I'm going blank right now. And you got another one, an All-Pro safety in Kirby Joseph. So are you going to be able to pay both? Probably not. You're going to have to choose one or the other. Lions picked 28 in the 2025 draft in late April. They have 7 picks. Last week I told you 6. That was correct then. But there's a rule that I wasn't aware of. They got a compensatory pick. Actually, they're going to get a couple that's tied to the Rooney Rule, which is about minority hirings, for the Jets hiring Aaron Glenn away from them. So they're going to get a pick still to be determined at some point in the 3rd round, which is great because they didn't have a 3rd rounder. So they now have 7 picks, no 5th rounder. Everybody needs picks. Everybody needs ammunition, but no one more so. I mean, just Brad Holmes, you can't say enough. The reason this Lions team has been so good is because he's been absolutely brilliant in the draft, just stockpiling this team with young talent. I mean, look, Amon Ra is going to be a Lion for the next 10 years, and they got him in the 4th round. He's an All-Pro. So Brad Holmes needs some ammunition, and he got a little bit more, 7 picks. As we head into the offseason, they start making some real tough decisions. So I got to imagine on these Wednesdays we'll be talking a lot about the Lions, even though it all still stings, which segue into my next topic, Super Bowl LIX, which no one really wants to talk about because I don't think people are still over the sudden end to the Lions season. I remember saying to our sports reporter, Nate Brown, 1 minute the Minnesota Vikings are down, 4.5 points to the Lions in that Week 18 finale with home field advantage on the line. You win that game. You got a home game in 2 weeks. Instead, they lose it. They go on the road next week. They get shocked by the Rams, and suddenly it's over. And I remember saying to him, God, Vikings fans must be reeling, the season ending so quickly, so unexpectedly. Well, same happened to the Lions, right? Washington much better than expected, and all those defensive injuries finally kept catching up to Detroit in that loss. But anyway, Super Bowl LIX 59, if you don't speak the Roman numerals. 2 weeks, a little less than 2 weeks now, obviously, in New Orleans in February 9th. I was really looking forward to covering that. We were talking about it and getting sponsored and the whole 9 yards. And I had spent 3 years prior to coming here in 2007 in Baton Rouge, about 75 miles from New Orleans. So I was really hoping to go back. And like anyone needs a reason to go back to New Orleans. But yeah, we're all upset about that. So the Chiefs, first team to advance to 5 Super Bowls in 6 seasons. Obviously, also the first with a chance to win 3 straight. No one's won 2 straight and played for a third. The Dolphins in the 70s got killed by the Cowboys. I think that was Super Bowl 6. and then won Super Bowl 7 and 8. Obviously, the Bills went to 4 straight and lost them all, but uncharted territory for this amazing Chiefs franchise and that incredible duo of Andy Reid and Patty Mahomes. Eagles, tremendous running game, outstanding defense. Right now, the early line, if you're a degenerate gambler, actually, I don't gamble much. I don't have the money, sadly. Hey, Barry. Yeah, it's going to be weird, but it's going to be great. I mean, it was just staggering, all the injuries they had. It was almost like a comical bad joke how many people they lost. Kansas City favored by 1.5, over under 49.5. You remember that was a fantastic Super Bowl a couple of years ago. I think it was in Arizona, Super Bowl 57, with the Chiefs winning 38-35 on a last-minute field goal. We'll probably dive into that more next Wednesday when we're on the cusp of the game. By the way, if you want to buy Super Bowl squares, and I know everybody is selling Super Bowl squares, please consider buying them from me and or my wife. We're doing a fundraiser for our 2 of our 4 children who play travel baseball and softball respectively, and they've been an absolutely great fundraiser. And it's fun. Makes the game even a little more fun to watch on Sunday, especially if you get an unexpected blowout, which thankfully, when I was a kid, it seemed like every year in my 20s, the Super Bowl was a blowout. It was incredible, but that's really changed over the last decade, even 15 years. A lot of competitive games, which is great. What else do we got in my disjointed notes? Again, this is the chicken scratch stuff all over the place. I do want to talk much more about the Super Bowl, maybe some prop bets. I'm not a very good gambler, I'm not so much on the spreads, but I do enjoy and have some success with the prop bets. For instance, Patrick Mahomes, is he going to throw for over 241 yards or not, something like that. So I do enjoy making a few wagers on Super Bowl Sunday, as a few of you do as well. All right, just some other topics. We're not going to get into a lot right now, but again, we're really going to be football heavy on these Wednesdays for a bit. I keep checking Twitter. I keep checking online to see what's going on with Alex Bregman, the Astros free agent third baseman, who would be a tremendous fit in Detroit, has a great relationship with A.J. Hinch. So it seems to be the Tigers, Astros, or Red Sox that would be in the market. But the problem is his agent, Scott Boras, he wants a number that no one is willing to pay thus far. So normally the top free agents, worst early in the new year, they've got a new home and they can settle down and know what they're going to do before the start of spring training in mid-February. So a bit unusual. But then again, Boras had a few clients last year that he misjudged the market, had to sign 1-year prove-it deals and sign much later than they expected. So that's looking like that might be the case with Alex Bregman. Smooth segue to college hoops, as I like to say. Michigan State, wow, 13 straight wins now. They're undefeated in the Big Ten, a perfect 9-0. They jackhammered Minnesota last night, held them to 16 first-half points. It's not a star-driven team. It really isn't. I think last night, blowout win, and the top scorer had 12 points, and Trey Holloman had 12. That was it. They're deep, but this is a really good ball club. Michigan, obviously, very good as well. Not as good as MSU. They're 7-2. I'm not talking about the record. Dusty May is the real deal. I'm all on that bandwagon, and I'm not even a Michigan fan. And I'll say, I'm a stupid New Yorker, Syracuse fan. So don't take that to mean MSU, because I get that all the time. Yo, you're an MSU fan. You're a Michigan fan. No. I'm just a dumb New Yorker who grew up rooting for Jim Boeheim and the Syracuse Orange. But no, he's the real deal. I mean, what he's done in year one, he did it at Florida Atlantic, took him to a Final Four. You knew he could coach, but this disjointed roster with only 2 or 3 holdovers and bringing all these new players in, and they are real good. I think 15-5, 7-2 overall. They were in the inside the top 25 before getting bounced last week. But I'd be really excited if I was a Michigan fan that Dusty May is my head coach. It would not shock me at all if he gets them back in the Final Four as early as next season. They're a really good head coach. Western picking up a much-needed big road win last night in Muncie against Ball State, 3-5 in the MAC. It has been a disappointing third season. You want to see that progress. We saw it in year 2. In year 3, we have not seen the same, but they finished the season really strong last year. So we're going to hope to see the same down the stretch for the Broncos. WMU women, I want to mention Shane Clipbell. Haven't talked about this. Such a great guy. And last Saturday, I think it was, became the program's all-time leader in career wins, 180 and counting for Shane Clipbell. Started the day 5-3 in the MAC, but this is going to be a tough week. They ran into the Buffalo Bulls today. They had a rare 11 a.m. game, kind of like those education day games that the K-Wings and Growlers have, where most of the crowd is obviously school kids. And they ran into a buzzsaw. Buffalo beat them by 33 today at home. But so 5-4 in the MAC, and then out of the frying pan and into the fire for them, because on Saturday they face Buffalo's second in the MAC. On Saturday they travel to Muncie to face the first place team in the MAC, Ball State. So that's going to be a tough one for Shane Clipbell's club. Thank you to everyone. Checking the comments right now as we speak. Let me scroll down. I appreciate you joining me. I'd like to build a bit of an audience for this. Problem is, it's not going to, I can say every Wednesday at 11 or 2 o'clock or 12:30 or whatever it may be. Again, I work day shifts on Wednesday, mostly evenings. Obviously, see me at 6, 10, and 11 on the other nights. But I'll have shoots during the day, and sometimes it's a morning shoot. Like I'll go over to WMU hockey; they always practice in the morning, or K-Wings practice in the morning, or an afternoon shoot with high school basketball team or something, one of our better teams. And so I'm not sure what time of day these will be on, but hopefully you'll pop in. I love the viewer comments. If you want to reach out on Twitter, @Pepper WWMT, to ask some questions or DM me. Facebook, obviously on Facebook, you can send me a friend request to my personal page or WWMT Facebook page, WWMT's Andy Pepper, or the email, apepper@sbgtv.com, samboygirl, sbgtv.com. Always glad to talk sports, answer questions. I know a lot of people are always like, why didn't you cover this? How could you not cover this? What's going on? There's usually a really good reason. A lot of times it's bodies, it's manpower, it's who's working. I have a sports reporter. It's a 2-man department. We have one other guy in the department. He's off Sunday, Monday. I'm off Saturday, Sunday. So there's just sometimes there's things we can't get to. Timmy Zimmerman, hello. Bernice, I already mentioned Bernice. Barry, Peggy Cisco, Jeanette. Did I mention Jeanette? Hello. Jeanette Partial. Hopefully I pronounced that wrong. Kathy, catching up on the comments. They made me a neat little digital backdrop, which didn't get loaded into the system. Right now I got the generic News Channel 3 logo behind me, but have a sort of a virtual stadium look, I guess, behind me, but we got to load it into the system. So again, every Wednesday we'll talk about the big topics, what's going on. We'll let you know what we're going to be covering during the week, what we might have already covered, what you might want to look at on our website, WWMT.com, and all things sports related, both in West Michigan, statewide, nationwide, the whole shebang. All right, that is pretty much all I got. I will see you all next Wednesday. Thanks for joining in.